The following program is a paid advertisement and does not necessarily represent the views, opinions, or endorsements of Signal Hill Media Partners, its affiliate stations, or its advertisers. Say what you want. Welcome to We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie Sawyer and co-host David Coble. Join them each week as they provide the latest updates on legislation affecting North Carolina, from breaking down key bills to answering your live call-in questions. Senator Sawyer and David engage in meaningful conversations on the issues that matter most to our state. No matter your political affiliation, We're Just Saying keeps you informed and involved in the efforts to make North Carolina a better place for everyone. Welcome to the conversation.
Good morning, everyone. You're listening to We're Just Saying on on multiple stations.
Yes.
I almost did it.
You did
almost messed up. But Senator Vickie Sawyer and David, like to be part of the show, 704-873-9929. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been in studio.
Yeah,
together.
it has been a couple of weeks. I'm glad you came out with a great opening there. It was good.
Well, it's a little. I mean, it's been a long week.
Is it an almost mess up if you stop and say you almost messed up, or is it just really a mess up?
No, it's an almost mess
Okay,
up. I didn't go the whole way. I
Okay.
almost messed up.
All
But
right.
see, I acknowledge my shortcomings when they're there. There's not many of them, but I
That
do
is
acknowledge
true.
them when they come.
That is true.
But 2 weeks ago I had to fly solo without you, me and Billy here, and
yeah,
I
heard.
got. I mean, the fan mail that came in from our show a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there's piles and piles of it out there. I don't know what was different about the show than normal. Well, wait, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
I was not around.
You were not,
and people were like, "Yes, thank God that woman's not there."
They were there to listen to the dulcet tones of David and Billy. I feel like there's a syndicated show to come off from there. But it's great to be back with you.
Oh, good. I just had a flashback thinking about mess ups when I was talking about the dulcet tones of David Coble, and I called it the dulcimer.
The dulcimer
David
tones.
Coble.
Yes.
And so we are all not without fault.
Absolutely not. But exciting week in Raleigh for you this week.
Yeah, it was a great week in Raleigh. It is it still feels like the beginning of session, but it's probably I would call it the end of the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the end of the first quarter of the session. Whoever knows? It is the North Carolina General Assembly.
Yes.
We have had like crazy sessions that sometimes end at 3 a.m. and sometimes don't even end at all for like a whole year. But I'm gonna call it the end of the first quarter. And so we have seen some controversial bills move through already, and we're gonna talk about
controversial to only to certain people.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have not lost faith in humanity just yet, but there was a big chink in the armor that happened this week.
What happened?
Oh my God. Okay. So we are having meetings, and it was Wednesday, which was the State of the State address. So kind of like the presidential address, the governor comes in, and that part was fun. So the House, we have to go to the House side, which is kind of weird for me because I don't know what they even do over there. No, I'm kidding. And so I got to sit with Representative Tricia Cotham, who's at the very front. So what does that mean? I have to be on my P's and Q's because there's cameras everywhere, and I'm just being very nice.
Have to mind the facial expressions.
And I clapped. I was not like a federal Democrat. I was very kind, and I stood when I should and showed the respect. And
well, that's good of you.
Yeah,
there can still be respect.
Yes. And Governor Stein came in, and he did a great speech. But this is the funny part for me. So that whole day, we had known it was a busy legislative day, and I don't know, say a couple hundred protesters decide to come. So I go over to Senator Berger's office because you can see, like, Senator Berger's office overlooks like the front of the building, so you can see who's all coming in. So I go and I look outside, and I see like the greatest paper mache dolls ever.
I saw those. I saw the paper mache dolls.
Were they not fantastic?
They were fantastic. A couple of friends of mine from down there sent videos of it. They were out there videoing, and I gotta say it was pretty solid work.
I mean, that is some serious hatred in your heart for now. Let me tell you that these paper mache dolls are probably 10 feet tall.
Oh, at least 10 feet tall.
And somebody puts them like on their shoulder. So it's like an apparatus where it's like a shoulder harness. And then you have the huge, like, Donald Trump with his obviously amazing hair,
Obviously,
all paper mache. And then we had Elon Musk,
of
same
course.
way, and then Putin. Now, the amount of effort they put into Putin is a little bit disheartening because he was about 5 feet shorter than Trump and Elon.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
he's a short guy.
is he a short
Yeah, he's
guy?
actually not that tall.
Oh, I didn't know. So maybe they were anatomically correct then.
Yeah, they may have. Well, I mean, it's slightly exaggerated, but anatomically exaggerated, maybe.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, he's not a tall guy.
So all three of these paper mache, larger than life, were folks were wearing them out front. So obviously they are protesting what? The Elon Musk,
Doge,
and
Trump, anything Trump in general, Trump, Putin puppet. I'm sure all things were implied.
Yes. So, but tell me, what is the difference between us and the federal government? Because those people don't know.
They really don't.
That's where I lost all hope in you, man. And these folks, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So you're here protesting against like Elon Musk, and you're asking folks, to tell Elon Musk this, but there's a big problem. We're not DC, man. Like, if you're going to take time out of your day, assuming that you have a job, which would be a Wednesday in the afternoon.
I'm going to be fair. Most of those people out there, I would wager that was their job.
Okay.
I mean, somebody was paying them to be there. I've always been fascinated by these people who can protest in the middle of the workday.
Yeah.
And so the only conclusion that I had, and it's always coordinated. They always show up at the same time,
right,
and everything like that. So I would wager that is their job. Okay, so they were working.
So, like, some of those signs were, let's see, protect Medicaid and Social Security, Medicare and Social Security. Again, that's federal.
Yeah.
Like, don't touch my Medicare. That's federal.
Federal.
Like everything. Like, so the fun part for me is during Governor Stein's speech, he had mentioned that he was setting up several different commissions, like an early childhood commission. He had bipartisan folks on there, and a few other things to look into. And one of his commissions is to look into government waste and spending. I was like, dude, you need to tell those like 200 protesters.
Yeah, welcome to the party.
Who are obviously all Democrat. And I'm like, y'all need to get on the same page here.
Clearly.
Because these folks are not getting it. Like,
well, it's always fun. And I've had the privilege of being in Raleigh when some protesters are going down there. And it is largely comical. They really are caricatures of protesters.
Yes.
They are not really clued into the issues of the day. They actually, I've been out there and I have seen some of them carrying sheets of like what they should be saying and what they're actually there to protest for. Because I think what happens is they organize these people at places, they send in buses, they bus them in, and they hand them out, basically the protest of the day.
Right.
Like, this is what we want you to yell and make fools of yourselves about.
Yeah.
And so it really, I believe in the First Amendment wholeheartedly. You have every right to stand out there and protest and make an idiot of yourself. But but it's be a little bit better informed of what you're out there. I mean, don't touch my Medicare, don't touch my Social Security. And like, I think it'd been hilarious if y'all would have come out and just said, we agree, we're not going to touch your Social Security. Yeah. We will not touch your Medicare. We commit to you right now. We are not going to touch it.
We should. And so most of the protesters, they generally have a different flair. So I was looking at the group through the window, and I was noticing like physical characteristics of them. And most of the protesters during this time look like older, like say 50 plus, and educated. And
how does one look educated?
Well, I mean, because they just, I don't know. That's true. That's fair. That's a great question. I know how they don't look educated.
Well,
but
they have like the glasses on.
They look like they're a bunch of college professors. Honestly, it's kind of like that vibe, that college professor vibe. And then I was sitting there thinking, like, you guys are the problem. Like this. Thank you, the university systems, of giving us these overeducated liberals who really want to just continue to take money out of the government and keep on waste. Because I'm thinking the ones, and I heard Elon Musk talk about it this week, the ones that are squealing and are frustrated the most about this government, look back on to see if we're spending wisely or not. The ones that are squealing the most are the ones who are probably the offenders of the most.
I'm sure that they have gotten a lot of federal money coming in. in, and I am sure that the gravy train
Yeah.
is slowing down. Hopefully, it will stop and run off the rails completely
Yeah.
as they keep going into this. But oh, absolutely, they're definitely the ones getting the money.
And this crazy, we talked about this before. We won't beleaguer the point too much, but just the amount of money that has been spent on just the craziest of things. And then our university system. I'm telling you what, I love my college, go Niners,
Go Niners.
but I still have this huge issue with the amount of money that our universities are receiving from state and local and from families like ours who are sending and
Mhm.
paying their money to go for their children to this university. And the product that we're getting is almost like predatory lending at some point with some of these things. But when I'm hearing about what was it, Columbia, how much money they
Oh
had
yeah.
received from the federal government, and then they're crying about that, I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not it costs a lot of money to send your kid to school.
Yes, especially to Columbia.
Yeah. And then you hear about all this money that they're pulling down from the feds and then from our state. Like every school building that you see on a university campus was paid for by tax dollars.
Yes.
So why are you charging me almost $21,000 a year for my child to go to your university when absolutely everything has been paid for by this? I mean, other than salaries,
Mhm.
right? Well, actually, we pay salaries too.
You
I
pay
mean,
salaries out of
what?
tax
I mean,
dollars too.
what is the money going for?
Well, and here's what kills me is that my nephew is still in college. My daughter just graduated, and we are what 4 years, close to five,
Uh huh.
outside of COVID, and there are still professors with asynchronous online classes
Yes.
where you never
Yes.
even go into a classroom. Why is that okay?
Right.
Why is that even remotely still allowed? That still occurs. Now, to be fair, my nephew has gamed the system a little bit. He loves the asynchronous online classes because it means he doesn't have to go into class. But
Right.
it's like, what am I paying for then
Right.
if you're not in the class actually teaching and these kids coming? So I think no one likes, no one in government likes the spotlight to be shined on them. Whether it be Republican administrations,
Right.
Democrat administrations, when you put the microscope on spending, everybody starts,
Right.
scurrying away and everything like that. But we have reached a point in our country, thankfully not in our state, but in our country where I think we're something like we run a $4 trillion deficit
Right.
and we are at $32 trillion in debt. That is simply not sustainable.
Right.
And something has to be done about it. Now, the things Dozier is looking at are great, but eventually we're going to have to start looking at Medicare. We're going to have to start looking at Medicaid. We're going
Mhm.
to have to start looking at Social Security. There is simply no way to get our fiscal house in order without looking at those things.
Mhm.
Now, does that mean necessarily cutting benefits? No. It can mean cutting a lot of waste.
Right.
People who are 180 years old who are still receiving their Social Security checks and
Mhm.
things like that. You can go through and look at a lot of that stuff, but at some point in time, you're going to have to start making some tough decisions to get our
Mhm.
fiscal house in order federally. There's just going to be no other way around it. And people are honestly, and this is what frustrates me, is I'm not sure that we as a country are capable of coming together in a way of saying, all right, we know that there's going to have to be some sacrifice, right?
Mhm.
Maybe I can't retire at 65 or I can't start getting my Social Security at 65. Maybe, I'm 20 years from receiving it. Maybe I can't get it till 67.
Mhm.
I've got 20 years to plan for that. Okay. If you tell them that now, but there's going to have to be adjustments made. And it's going to be interesting to see when they start getting into that because they get the low hanging fruit right now, but then there's going to have to be some tough conversations and decisions that are going to have to be made.
Yeah, that waste, fraud, and abuse is really rampant. We're seeing, especially in the Social Security Administration. And I saw where they are now looking at all of the transactions where they did a change of bank account, and you can do it. They, for some reason, like 40% of those requests for direct deposits into Social Security or for your Social Security benefits were transactions that were done over the phone.
Wow.
And so there was really no verification of where that money and if that banking account was truly associated with the person who was receiving the benefits. And you've seen, and actually, state government's just as bad as far as none of our other than the DMV, and we all know what think about that. Really, any of our government agency databases do not speak together.
Mhm.
They do not cross pollinate as well as they should, and especially with the Department of Revenue and all of those things. So, I mean, just I think a lot, and I continue to preach this, but a lot of these things that we need to do for government efficiency is modernizing
Mhm.
our systems, our computer systems, our databases. Really work hard to get those things going because we are basically just an information house. else. And
Right.
if we're not working well, then of course these things with waste, fraud, and abuse are going to happen.
So now, are you going to be placed on any of the bipartisan commissions that the
I
governor is kicking off?
no, I don't think I am. You know what?
You're
I'm
not going to
pretty.
make the cut.
Don't think I'm going to make the cut, my friend. I
Well, I
think
think
this
only like Republicans, quote unquote, like Bob Orr will probably make those.
is he really a Republican?
No, I
I
don't
mean,
think
I
he
don't know.
ever
I hate
has
when
been.
people say that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I should not. I do not. I really do get frustrated when folks like measure like a purity stick of your Republicanism because there's really no
Well, I think
purity
if you have a
stick.
history of supporting Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, and Senate Democrats, I think the sort of the horses left the
Okay,
barn.
okay,
I don't
okay.
think that's even purity we're
I guess
talking about.
I guess I always get frustrated with that kind of stuff because to me, a Republican is someone who's registered Republican and votes Republican. Now, what that means to you or somebody else is totally different. But we're all on that same team, so I always get frustrated because folks will go, "You're just a rhino. You're just like a Charlotte Republican. You're not a real
Charlotte
Republican.
Republican.
You're not a real Republican." And I'm like, "Look, I'll tell you how real much money I spend and have to take out of my family's pocketbook to go up to Raleigh every day to be a Republican. I think that qualifies someone as being a kind of a real Republican. So this real Republican will not probably be on a bipartisan board because I have not been asked to be a part of that.
Well,
So
obviously there's still time. There's still
I'm
time. You might make the cut.
gonna tell you what, I'm pretty maxed out.
Yeah.
I'm slammed. I'm just busy. I mean, the session is busy. We're doing the budget for the DOT right now, and guys, I sorry to break anyone's hearts, but we have been directed by leadership as budget writers that we have to cut every budget.
Cut every budget.
We have to look for efficiencies and cuts in each and every budget. So my whole thing last week is really looking into the DOT budget to see where we can, always you look for what they call FTEs or full time
Hmm.
employees because that's pretty expensive,
Hmm.
and agencies are kind of rewarded if they don't hire somebody to fulfill or fill that job because at the end of the fiscal year, which ours is like June 30th to July 1, if they don't use it, then they keep that money in their coffers, and that's fungible money that they have freedom to do it. So there's no incentive for an agency to fulfill a role if the job is being done, because then that agency director can keep that money and use it in for their directive and see how they see fit. I'm not saying that they're misusing the money. I mean, maybe there is some, but we continue to like fund these positions, and if nobody's home, then why are we funding them?
Right.
So that's always one of the ones that you're going to look at. Of course, there's a bunch of these like Office of Civil Rights and things in each and every one of those agencies that had to be stood up in North Carolina in order to get federal funding. It wasn't Reagan who kind of started this stuff with the drinking age, but in order for a state to get federal funding, they always put strings
Oh,
attached.
always.
And those strings usually mean setting up a new bureaucracy at the state level so you can check off a box. And one of those is the Federal Highway. One I'm really looking at hard right now is the Federal Highway Administration and the feds. They've always had this program that you have to have a certain amount of minority owned businesses in order to get their money. I'm totally down with folks who are a minority contractor or woman owned contractor to get these things. I mean, I think the intent of that rule was really good,
Hmm.
right? Because you want to have smaller businesses be able to get success and get, but really in the practical sense of that, what happens? It's someone like me who I have a general contractor's license for residential and commercial, that my husband, that I would have the business would be in my name, but then my husband is really the one who's running it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden a minority owned business. And now I'm sitting there, having cocktails at the pool on a Tuesday afternoon. Not really. But I mean, I'm not in the day-to-day business, and there's a super conglomerate business behind me.
Mhm.
And it's not really minority owned business at that point, or
Right.
woman or historically underutilized business is what they call them. And so people, I think any rule that you put, especially when it comes around money and government contracting, businesses are smart enough to circumvent that rule. And so why are we just putting this whole farce up? I mean, why do you check a box for that for a woman owned business to get a contract when it's not truly a woman owned business?
Mhm.
And why don't we look at things like, let's stop that type of business practice because it just doesn't work. And let's look at lowering the barriers and for entry for those kind of contractors. For example, if I'm a person who's just starting up a new roadway contractor group, I don't know, whatever. Say I'm a boy, I don't, girl, doesn't matter. Alien.
Well, you can
Who
say
cares?
you can be whatever you want to be, Vickie.
No, I am definitely a girl. I am definitely a girl. Now, can I identify as being 20?
Sure.
Not,
Go for it.
The lines on my face do not say that I can get away with that either.
No one is in a position to judge your identification, Vickie.
Oh, yes,
You
they
can
are.
be whatever you want.
Oh, yes, they are. I put my name on a ballot every 2 years and ask for them to
Well, yeah,
judge.
now you asked to be judged.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You volunteer to be judged.
But so for me, like instead of to putting an arbitrary goal about whether you're a woman or you're minority, whatever, how about let's look at reducing the barrier to getting into contracting for governments? Like if if I look at the jobs that the DOT are issuing now, they're so large and they're so big that it pretty much precludes a lot of North Carolina companies just because the job is so big. So why not let's look at reducing the size of the job, cutting it down into pieces, and then reducing the insurance and bonding and all of this other like mundane bureaucratic red tape that we put on contractors who want to do business with North Carolina. And then someone who was be like me, say starting a new business would actually have a chance. But the way it works right now is that there's so much red tape that a contractor, not just in roadways, I mean, in any type of government that wants to do and perform business for North Carolina, they have incredible insurance things that really nobody should have to go through. I mean, I know you know that personally as a small
yeah.
business owner. And there's all of these bonding requirements that are basically impossible to get bonded. And why not look at reducing those burdens, those regulatory burdens on our private sector so that we can get more people in North Carolina to do work for North Carolina?
No, and I think that is great because the regulatory burden is real. I know a lot of people try to dismiss it. Well, on the left, try to dismiss it. It is very much real, and every regulation is cost.
Yeah.
Every single one requires cost. It's a requirement that makes you go and do something, makes you go and buy something, make you get some kind of certification. Ultimately, every single regulation is a cost. Now, there are regulations that are absolutely essential, building codes and things like that, making sure things don't collapse around you, all things that are necessary. But then there are all these additional requirements that are put on top of it that just cost business money. And when it costs business money, that is ultimately passed along to the consumer. And it ultimately, in this case, it's the government.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, you're going to require me to get all these things. I'm going to bill that back to you. I'm not eating that cost.
Right.
And so that's going to come back to you, which means the government has to spend more on these projects. So I think it's very good. And I think, I agree. I fully support, trying to make sure we get businesses, minority businesses and things like that and involved and everything like that. It's why that, if I ever decide to become a government contractor, I definitely intend to check the box for American Indian, because from what I hear, all you have to be is 1,024th American Indian. That we have a senator at the federal level who does that. So if that's only criteria, I guarantee I got that. I guarantee I got it.
Isn't that like at the crux of this whole conversation? Like just what you said is that's exactly what happens. And don't you want the best product, not necessarily whatever you have this predetermined box that you have to check for government. And maybe that's why some of our contracts are so expensive, is because there's not the ability for a lot of people to bid on the same contract. So you continually get fewer and fewer contractors who can do more and more jobs. And then that means just basic economics that the prices are going to go up. And it's interesting to me that if you look at some of the invoices that I've seen for construction on roadways, if I put a DOT project versus a local municipality project, the price is like tenfold different in some areas, especially on small things. So is it that it's not that the municipal or the city governments can do it better. It's just that they have smaller projects that they could get bids by more people, and therefore more competition brings all the prices down. And I think we really need to do that with the agency, with the DOT. I think we need to do it with everything in government, is look at these regulations, cut them out so we can increase competition for North Carolina homegrown businesses to be able to do the work.
No, 100%. And I think that's a great initiative. Hopefully you all are able to get that off the ground.
I'm trying because, when I was sitting there and so when we do budgeting, we have a nonpartisan, what they call fiscal staff, but some people always say physical staff, which makes me laugh. So I love it when they say, especially some anyways. So they, are tasked with researching. And so when and they do a great job for us. So thank you so much. If you happen to be listening to the show, I want to say thank you. But when I bring up this Office of Civil Rights in the DOT and ask, like, let's look down and to see actually what they're doing, because we've increased their budget, we increased the amount of people that worked with them every year that I've been there, because they always say, well, we have to have it because of the federal government. We have to have it because of the federal government. But I'm like, hey, let's look at this thing. And then you can see them nervously, like, it's a hotbed issue. And I'm like, look, I mean, just because the name of the agency, civil rights, doesn't mean that they're actually doing things that promote help for small owned businesses and minority owned businesses. They're just learning how to put another cog and red tape in the contracting process to, do an arbitrary. I know. I go on and
what
on
I
and
have
on,
found is a lot of time these regulations are being set forth by people who have never
Yes.
been in a business in their life.
Yes.
They look at it and they think, oh, well, this will be good. And so they do it, and like they've never paved a road before. They've never
Right.
built a building before
Right.
or anything like that. So they put these arbitrary regulations in that people who have experience in this field are
Right.
going to say, there's no value
I
here.
know.
Why are you putting this on me? This
Right.
doesn't do anything. This might make you feel good. You might be able to go and tell someone, oh, we added an extra regulation to do
Right.
this and promote the safety. It's like, that doesn't do anything to promote safety.
Mm-mm.
It makes it think you sound good, but it doesn't promote safety. So
Mhm.
anything, I have always been a firm believer that in all of these agencies and stuff like that, especially like, be it in transportation, be it in procurement or whatever,
Yeah.
if you are responsible for overseeing road construction, you need to have constructed a road.
Yeah.
You need to have actually constructed a road at some point in your life to understand what it is that is required.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems like a basic,
Right.
basic thing to me.
Yeah, I know. Not that you're 1/1000% of Native American,
No,
right?
that qualifies me.
Okay.
It qualifies me. I've heard that qualifies me. Now,
Uh-huh.
did you watch the State of the Union
I
by
did.
chance? I'm sorry, but Trump is the ultimate troll. When he talked about the Ukraine funding, and he was like, "Do you want the Democrats start clapping?" And he's like, "Do you really want 5?" He goes, "Do you want 5 more years of it?" And they start clapping. And Elizabeth Warren apparently was clapping real loud. And he goes, "Oh yeah, Pocahontas wants it." So I was just like, man, it's just like I get some people decorum and all this other kind of stuff. At the federal level, decorum got thrown out a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so, but like when he did that, I laughed so hard at that. And I was like, and you could just tell she was fuming because she was just clapping her hands. But it was fantastic. But I do think what you guys are doing is going to be good. Hopefully you can get through and get some regulations cut out so that we can streamline these processes. So more businesses, more competition can come in.
Right.
That's what you ultimately want.
Correct. That's exactly right. The bottom line is, how do we deliver projects efficiently with the best possible outcomes for the folks who need it, which is our North Carolinians.
Yep. If you're listening to We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie Sawyer, we'll be right back.
We all want more of a North Carolina, more boundless views, more adventures in the outdoors, and more clean roads to get there. But to get more, we have to do less. Less littering, that is. Make it your nature to trash your trash and keep NC clean. And we'll all have more reasons to love North Carolina. Litter less, get more. For more on the 7 outdoor NC Leave No Trace principles, visit OutdoorNC.com. Sponsored by the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and Visit North Carolina, a part of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina in cooperation with this station.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Bravo, Brenda. You've always been a saver. Price matching your price matches. The self-proclaimed queen of extreme couponing. But this time, you've truly outdone yourself. By saving for this electric vehicle, you're locking in up to $1,000 a year in fuel and maintenance savings, which will leave you saying, cha-ching, every time you unplug. Good for your wallet, great for the planet. That's the power of EV. Sponsored by the NC Clean Energy Technology Center and the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters in cooperation with this station.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your real ID at tsa.gov/real ID. That's tsa.gov/real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
Welcome back to We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie, Sawyer, and David. Like to be part of the show, 704-873-9929. So you
Did that commercial just say visit your local DMV and you'll be cleared for takeoff?
Yeah, it did. It was that.
Is that the DMV trolling us? Who are
I
trying
think
to,
so, actually. I think
who are buying ad space on our radio station to promote themselves?
Cleared for takeoff after 4 hours of sitting there.
Yeah.
And I say that actually from experience. My daughter finally got her permit.
Oh, wow.
Which is fantastic.
Congratulations.
But she went in for her appointment, and there was a lady there. My wife said as they were leaving, she finally got called back, and she goes, great use of 4 hours of my time.
Oh, gosh.
So she had been there 4
Yeah,
hours.
but if you listen to Commissioner Wayne Goodwin, the average wait is only 28 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's what he said to our committee.
If you only measure between 8:30 and 9.
Well, the guy had already decided that he wasn't going to ask to be reappointed as commissioner and go to a separate way. So in the committee meeting, when he mentioned that, I thought I'd give him a break. But I was like, where did you get those numbers, man?
Yeah. I was
is that from the time that they actually call you back to the time that you get out from the appointment?
So what are the bills you sent
Yeah.
in your fantastic show prep?
Oh, yes.
That you sent me an hour before the show.
Hey, at least it wasn't 10 minutes like
at
others.
least it wasn't 10 minutes.
Yes,
but
yes.
you guys are working to get rid of cell phones during instructional time.
So what are your thoughts?
I love it.
Really?
I think it is absolutely fantastic. I am of the opinion that when kids get to school, they should, and this has actually been being implemented in some Democrat states, believe it or not, California, New York, New Jersey, where you get to school, you put your phone in a locker that's assigned to you, and it stays in there during instructional time. You can come and get it for lunch, and then it goes back in, and then you get it at the end of the day. And I think that is fantastic. I think it should be that way. I do not think they should have cell phones inside the classroom. People, well, if there's an emergency, there's landlines all through that school. So that's not a problem. So they need to, I mean, we got along just fine without cell phones when we were in school.
Yeah, but
if you had to call mom, you went up to the office
Yeah.
and called them. If they needed to get in touch with you, they called the office. They went over the big loudspeaker, David Coble, please report to the office. And so with that, we went. It worked just fine.
God, you sound so old.
I am old. Every day.
I did hear a comeback though to a parent who. So the reason why we're talking about this is we are looking at banning cell phones in North Carolina schools and
during
instructional time. I think some school systems have already done a similar thing, but this is just codifies it and puts it into language that, and to make sure that is. We heard from some parents who was like, well, what happens if there's an emergency? And I heard the best comeback to that by Senator Bergen on the floor. And he said, if there is an active shooter emergency or fire or any other emergency, the last thing those kids need to be doing is calling their mom and asking them what to do. The first thing they need to be doing is looking at the teacher and asking, and the teacher needs to have full control. So if each one of those, say 25 children in her classroom or his classroom are all calling their mom, they're all going to get 25 different directions. They're not going to be paying attention. So the argument is that people with children with cell phones in the classroom during a major incident like that is actually more dangerous than it would be if you didn't have.
And it's not just calling your mom, it's filming it.
Right.
And I mean, in this day and age, we love danger porn on, people filming fights, people filming all these things in malls. I mean, there are cell phone videos of people running from active shooters, and there's a moron standing there with their cell phone.
Right.
And it's like the first and total priority, as you said, get to safety. Listen to your teachers, get to where you need to be. You don't need to be filming it. You don't need to be calling, because truth be told, anybody you call is not going to be able to do anything about it.
Right.
You need to get yourself to safety, and you don't need to be filming it. So I think it's a fantastic idea. I support it 100%.
Yeah, I do too. I'm sure there'll be some devils in the details, but just like anything, some of the Democrats were frustrated with it because they just don't like, they don't want the state government telling local legislative groups what to do. I mean, local school systems what to do. They're just always that natural. They just some people are just contrarians.
Yeah.
I mean, if we say the sky's blue, they'll well maybe a blue a tinge to that sky, but it's really more of a aquamarine or something. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way they do. Like, so when they were saying these things, I was like, I don't really. That dog doesn't hunt, but so yeah, so that's coming through. We'll see if it goes. And I think Governor Stein had mentioned that he will sign that bill into law when he
Nice.
gets it on his desk. So that
Well, that
is
might
good.
actually be something that can actually get a little bipartisan support.
Yeah, I think so. I do believe it will, and I'm fully supportive of it. So I
Good.
think getting phones out of kids' hands at any time, especially during instruction time, is very bad. Is good. And then I was listening to a teacher talking about like the competition that she has to face with kids' phones in their hand. So like she says, okay, first of all, as soon as they wake up, they have their phones in their hand, kind of like David Coble does, and then they and then so they have all of this sensory overload, and then when they ask them to not have their phones in their hands, they almost go through like this what do you call it, like a hangover of it, of not
Withdrawal, yeah.
withdraw. Yeah, thank you. Withdrawals of not having it. So you're a teacher up there trying to take care of these kids who are going through withdrawal symptoms for not having that stimulus in their hand, and it's just really a big loop. So for safety reasons and for educational concerns, I think it's a good bill. So
I
we'll see it
agree.
come.
You guys shelled out some more Helene funding, which is good.
Yeah, we did. Well, kinda.
You
We did
kinda?
kinda.
Kinda.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to watch. So this is total like behind the scenes stuff, but
The story you'll only get here.
well, I wasn't in the back room, so this is kind of like a back room adjacent. So the House folks had got the Hurricane Helene bill together. They sent it over to the Senate, and the Senate writers kind of negotiated with the House, like, okay, it's going to have this for funding for this, and so you all went through. So there's like 140 million for the Department of Commerce for community revitalization, and 100 million to Department of Public Safety for emergency management. There's like 20 million for the Office of State Budget Management. I mean, so the list goes on and on and on to try to help fill in some of the needs. All the while, remember, we're really waiting for the money from the federal government.
Mhm.
Like, we are prayerful that the money will come down. And there's always this, like, we talked about it, as a state, you want to help as soon as you can, but when the feds are making promises, and then if you start spending state money, the feds are going to pull back what they're going to give you. And so we want to leverage all the money we can get, and that's why some of this is taking a little while. So anyways, so they negotiated with the House and budget writers on the bill, and then it goes back over to the House. And so everybody thinking, yay, we're going to vote on it, it'll be great. And the House said, not so fast, Senate. You put some stuff in there I don't like.
What did you cagey senators try to get slip past them?
Yes, we are cagey a little bit. Well, there's a couple things. So we talked about this on the show before, but there's always this House versus Senate conversation around nurse practitioners being able to practice to the top of their scope. So there was portions of that kind of reductions of regulations on what nurses can do in Western North Carolina that kind of showed up in there. That was one of the problems. There's also a huge need for agriculture across the state. So not only were Hurricane Helene farmers just totally taken off the books, there was a huge drought that happened in down east and across North Carolina last year, and so the crop loss is absolutely amazing. And so I believe the commissioner, or Steve Troxler, had asked for over $1 billion to help out local farmers. Well, instead of it just being for Western North Carolina farmers, the bill was opened up to all farmers. And so those folks in Western North Carolina didn't like that because they felt like it would take away from the needs from the West, and by helping those in the East, because you were having the same pot of money spread across this entire state instead of that. So those are things I'm sure they're working out today, and that we'll get to it. But again, it's kind of like a little bit of the sausage making, but the money will be coming. But remember, once we pass the appropriations bill, then it goes to this Office of State Budget Management, and then they verify where it goes. I mean, so it's still like a couple months out for the money that we passed today to get to actual hands, but we are hoping for the feds to come in. You won't really see anything for transportation in there because we are still fighting to hopefully we can get some reimbursement for I-40. I mean, we will get the reimbursement, just how much, right? Our ask was get 100% reimbursement for the $1 billion. that's going to take to get I-40 fully operational. That would really go a long way to help us. But right now we're looking about $950 million out of the state coffers for
Wow.
DOT to float the projects or our match to the federal. And remember, that's nearly like $1 billion, and the whole entire budget for DOT is only like 4.8 billion.
Oh wow.
So that's a considerable amount of money that we're trying to figure out where it can go. But the DOT is, it's not like they have stopped work. They're up there working, and
Mhm.
they're getting stuff open. I-40's at least got one lane back and forth going, and but yeah, there's some serious conversations around what to do with Chimney Rock and Back Cave and all this.
Mhm.
It's just terrible.
Yeah, when Billy and I brought the show to new heights a couple of weeks ago, we had Representative Jake Johnson from over in Polk County, and we spent a good little bit of time talking about Chimney Rock and the Lake Lure area and the Western North Carolina stuff
Yeah.
that he was seeing. So I mean, and he made the point, and I think Senator Todd, it was Johnson and Johnson Day a couple of weeks ago. We had
Oh,
Senator
love
Todd
it.
Johnson, we had Representative Jake Johnson, and we talked some about the Helene, and both of them made the point that this is not a 1 year, this is 4, 5, 6 years of funding and projects and things like that to be able to get Western North Carolina back where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I know it's a big job, but you also you guys are also doing some work. So you sent Duke Energy, which I thought was a little interesting to me as a topic, and
Yeah.
so talk to me about what are we talking about here with Duke Energy?
Okay, so I'm trying not to get policy wonky on it, but here's the deal. Every energy production in North Carolina, it's a big problem everywhere, not just
Mhm.
North Carolina. There's continued um, demand, especially for those of us who are like, Tesla drivers and all this other stuff. So and then we have all of these AI things. And so there's continuing new load that's putting on the demand for energy rates. There's also a push to make energy rates more carbon neutral. And so a while ago, maybe a session ago, there was a bipartisan bill that was negotiated that would help do carbon neutrality by 2050. And it had different steps in there that you had to meet in order to get to that neutrality. Now, I think the industry is already going that way anyways, and I think carbon neutral really means nuclear. I mean, that's really what it means.
Nuclear.
Nuclear. um, but you know, but along the way, there's things that, Duke Energy is decommissioning the coal fire plants, which one is in our neighborhood, like Marshall Steam Stations, and one in Blue Creek, and they're taking those and they're going to regenerate or rejigger them, like the word. That's
Yeah,
very fancy. Rejigger.
government word.
Yeah. And so the one in Marshall's going to be natural gas. And then they're looking at a micronuclear plant over there in Blues Creek. Anyways, long story short, you need more energy. And how are
Mhm.
you going to get it? Well, the way Democrats think you can get it is through, not all of them, but a lot of them think you get it through wind and solar. Well, it's just not sustainable yet. The technology's not there. The technology still isn't there. So when these arbitrary date of 2030 was put into the law to get to energy neutral, it was supposed to be at the least cost possible. Well, wind is expensive.
Yes.
And
And it doesn't work.
and it kills wells.
Yes, it does.
And birds.
And not for nothing, do you know the amount of carbon emissions that come from making one of those things?
Yeah.
And keeping it greased?
Yeah.
And keeping it powered?
Yeah.
Because the wind doesn't power itself; it's powering something else. And that's one of the things frustrates me about the carbon neutral, great goal.
Right.
Okay, fine, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that the technology that be it lithium battery technology, be it solar power, be it wind power, all of those things in some form or fashion let off more in carbon emissions than
Right.
than they save by making them.
Right.
And so it's like, and it's great PR. It makes Democrats happy when they're in there, but what it does is it diverts dollars away from actual research that could like get us cleaner, more effective. Like how do we decrease emissions through burning coal,
Yeah.
burning fuel, natural gas, nuclear, cleanest that you're going to get.
Right.
Nuclear. But like we haven't built a new nuclear plant in this country in
15 years?
15, 20
I think
years?
so, yeah.
Or
Is that right?
longer?
No, it's longer.
Yeah, it's
But
been longer.
But even our nuclear power plant is at the end of its life cycle down in the Lake Norman area with McGuire Nuclear. So the idea is that look, we're still keeping the carbon neutrality footprint for 2050. That didn't change, but this 2030 date is really coming up fast. So let's like move that back or reduce it. And so otherwise, or else, if they have to meet this goal by statute, then everybody's rates are going to go up for energy because they're going to have to invest in all of these emerging technologies that just aren't producing it. So they're
Mhm.
going to, it's kind of like just, Duke is a, private company, but it also is regulated heavily by the
Mhm.
state. So there's only certain things they can do. And so if they have to do this 2030 date, then it's going to cost, and the cost modeler said like over billions of dollars to ratepayers in order to meet this goal. Why not just go ahead and push the goal back, knowing that it's there and that we can still continue to go to carbon neutrality?
Yeah.
So that was the thing. But, agreed, the bill was fastly done as far as, during committee process. It got introduced on Tuesday, it got voted in on Thursday. And totally understand the issue that some legislators who aren't in the majority will say for that, because I would be frustrated too.
Mhm.
But it's good policy and it's something that we had to do. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think, and again, it's good direction, but inevitably you get these, like, for example, you get, green, not nonprofits, like the one that got, like, the Stacey Abrams one that got
Oh
like
my gosh.
$8 billion, something
How
like that.
much money did she get? Was it like
Was
millions?
billion no, it was billions of dollars.
Oh
And I
my
actually saw a clip of
gosh.
her online explaining it. And what they did is they had these little groups and they basically got government funding to buy energy efficient refrigerators for people to then save on their energy costs. Like she goes, some people's energy bills went down 30%. Okay. So if my energy bill was, $120,
Uh-huh.
you saved what, 30, that's $36 off. That's great. But you bought me a $2,500 refrigerator with taxpayer dollars to do it.
Right.
That's not exactly a cost.
What a
That doesn't
scam.
make a complete scam. And then she's like, then we all just came together and did one big one and got all these billions so we can buy people more refrigerators. And so it's like, those are the kind of things that the unintended consequences that you talk about
Yeah.
when people do, when we try to get in and push private industry to
Right.
do these that's the kind of stuff that you get.
Yeah.
And it's like, not that you guys are going to do that, but it's
No.
like you really, I'm a big private sector guy. I believe if Duke Energy, if Chevron, if Exxon, if these things worked
Mhm.
and were cost efficient, they'd be doing them today.
Right.
There is no reason why they'd sit back and say, I want to continue burning oil if this is efficient and it works.
Right.
So let them develop the technology, let them move towards it, still regulate, still
Mhm.
encourage it, but don't all these mandates and regulations that get put on things. Those are the kind of crap that you get out of that, at least at the federal level.
No, I mean, I'm sure that it happens at the state level too. I mean, I won't name any names, but I always have folks who will come in and say, "Well, we've got the best and brightest new safety product for NCDOT. Now, will you put this into law so that they have to use it?" I'm serious. And I said, no. So I've actually stopped taking all meetings with private companies like that because I don't even want to be anywhere close to thinking that some decision I put into law is going to make a company have to buy from them. I mean,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's not where I don't do procurement. I don't buy things for the government. I
Right.
put in law and then the agency is what they choose to do that. But yeah, I mean, it happens. And obviously under the Democrats. And I think that's why they're all upset and why we had a paper mache Elon Musk in
Yeah,
front of our
absolutely. We do have a phone call here on We're Just Saying. Hi, good morning. You're on with Senator Sawyer. Oh, you were.
Oh, we did.
Guess
We
guess
did.
didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
Now we got it. All right, now we
Okay.
got him. Hi, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad y'all was live. Wasn't sure if it was live or not.
We are live, sir.
Hey, so what I've been working on for several years now is, and I've mentioned it before, is the steam power.
Mhm.
By you take a hot water heater in each person's home that's being heated by gas and being held, let's say, around 120, 150 degrees temperature all the time. It don't take that much more gas to go ahead and boil water, okay, to create steam. That steam heat your home and give you clean distilled water, and it's integrated with your current HVAC system. Everybody creates their own energy. There's no exhaust except for the what you're using for the heating the water, and I think there's even a possibility of generating enough power that the power can heat the water and leave you enough power to live off of to a certain extent by banking some of the energy. It's something I've been working on. So if she got like $1 billion to help research that. Is there any way I can get some funding to prove this out? I need some
I see a line
backup.
item in the budget, Senator Sawyer, right there.
That's the only thing holding me back.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend. That's awesome. After you just say, and you said you weren't taking meetings anymore, so he had to call.
Yeah.
And
Just say,
consider
I
the
guess
meeting.
you could
Hey.
call. Maybe that's what we should do. Is we should do a segment of the show where people can come and pitch their ideas and see, like a Shark Tank for government.
Shark Tank for government. That could what could go wrong?
Nothing could go wrong.
What could go wrong? But I'll tell you what you could do is that rifle some of that sports betting money that's coming in.
Yes.
Big
Did
numbers
you see
out.
that?
I did. Big numbers
Holy
out of the sports betting.
smokes. Yeah. So North Carolina's Linneans love their sports betting. I mean, there was over, gosh, let's see, it was over 6.1 billion in paid wagers and almost 500 million more in free promotional bets in the first 12 months that online sports betting has been legal in the state.
Yeah, and I contributed a good portion of that. Just there weren't not many payouts have come my way lately, so you're welcome, North Carolina.
Well, good. So maybe we can get more roads paved by your donations.
Hey,
to the state.
I'm doing my part.
Oh, good.
Okay, I'm doing my part.
Well, I mean, it is bracket season. That
It is
coming
March
up. And did you
Madness
see where
time.
UNC Wilmington actually got a bid to the Final Four?
I did, to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, not Final Four. Yes, the NCAA tournament.
Your depth sports knowledge is showing again. I know they might play in the Super Bowl too. Yes, I did see that.
So, are you saying my career as a sports announcer is not
not happening?
Not going to happen.
You're doing very well as a senator. I would not try to go into the ring.
Maybe I'll start betting on sport. Maybe I'll start betting on sports.
You know what? It's the people like you that make the money, though, who just go through and just randomly do things with no reason or rhyme or anything like that. You guys are the ones that end up making the money.
All right. Well, maybe I'll try. Maybe we should do that. We should do.
I will sit down. I'll sit down and we'll
do a bracket, and you can do a bracket. I'll do the sport. Can you do brackets on the sports betting app? Can you fill out a bracket?
Yeah, they have bracket challenges and stuff like that, and there's bracket pools and things like that. So yeah, March Madness is the best time of the year to be into sports betting. It's like Christmas in March. It's like 3 weeks of just fantastic opportunities to lose money. on college kids playing basketball.
In our last few minutes here, who else is going to lose some money?
Who?
People who sell DEI material to our public schools.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So this was another
assault on DEI continues.
Yeah, it does. Well, I think it's the idea of diversity, equity, inclusion is absolutely pure at its heart, and where it started out was to help folks. But what it's morphed into is just this horrible underbelly of another government cheese program that is just awful. Like, Senator Lee, we passed the bill this week to say that, this is not to say that a teacher cannot talk about anything in her classroom. It is to say that, first of all, these $625 an hour, and some were per participants and per teacher. School districts are paying into tens and $20,000 for these programs. And when we got actually some of the literature that was being shown to them, and also some of the recorded video, it was like things that they were teaching teachers is that if a white student should ask you about slavery, then your response is that you should feel bad, you as a white person, because you and your family oppressed people.
Mm-hmm.
That's over 100 years ago,
mm-hmm.
right? You know what I mean? Like those kind of things are literally written into some of these DEI initiatives, and to teach. It was actually to teach racism,
mm-hmm.
right, against folks who are different, race, color. I mean, it was, and then at $600 an hour, you're like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing?
Well, and I don't think a lot of people realize how far this goes back. So when I got out of college, I went to work for a bank in Charlotte. I had to go through diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And it was like a 2-day offsite training where I went and sat, and it was categorized into race, gender, and sexuality. And I was the bad guy in every conversation, all right? Because I was white, and then I was male, and then I was heterosexual.
Oh,
and
shame.
so basically it was 2 days of like shaming me and like you have to own the greatest thing was when they told me I had to own my group, which meant that if another white heterosexual male did something bad, I needed to feel somewhat accountable for that and feel bad for that and seek to make restitution because of it. And it took personal accountability completely out of it. It was like owning your group, and it was the most miserable experience of my entire life. And we had, I remember on the gender day, the men had to sit down, and there was like a group of ladies that got up, and it was like, ladies, what do you want to tell the men?
Oh God.
What do you want them to know? And their official spokesperson and very, very solemn tones and everything like that said, we want you to know that we're not your mothers, we're not your sisters, we're not your daughters. We don't need your protection. And it was like, okay, cool. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
And then the discussion proceeded to go to that if I was in a meeting and someone interrupted the lady, I was supposed to speak up for her. And I was just like,
wait a minute.
well, and I just made, you're looking the way I look, because I raised my hand and I was just, and I was young and stupid. I should have known to keep my mouth shut. But I raised my hand. I said, wait a second. I was like, wouldn't it be better if you spoke up for yourself and I backed you up? And because they're back you up, but you speak up for yourself. And this one lady looked at me and she goes, well, I was with you for a second, but you know what, you're scared to stand up to your group, you're scared to stand up to other men. And I was just like, whoa. I was like, did you not just look at me like 10 minutes ago and say you weren't my wife, you weren't my mother, you weren't my daughter, you didn't need my protection? Well, what is me speaking up for you when you won't? And it was like, and I just got lambasted, and it was just like, I mean, it was an absolutely miserable experience. But this goes back, this was the year 2000 that this kind of stuff was going on. So get rid of it, get it gone. I am all for it. Hopefully my son and my kids will never have to endure that kind of misery, because it was awful. The lunches were good. They catered the lunches pretty well. It was over in South Park, so it was pretty good.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so this bill is again aiming to just reduce and remove that out of the public school system and charter school system. And then
I love it.
Of course, everything is about opportunity scholarship. So the folks who are against this bill was talking about, well, what about if the private schools who are getting public dollars, the opportunity scholarship, what happens if they say something terrible or whatever? And Senator Lee was like, well, if that happens, then I can move my child.
Exactly.
Right. That's the point of an opportunity. That's the point of a school choice, is that if there's something that's going on that you do not like, and if you can afford to, you can move your child. But if you can't afford to, you have an opportunity scholarship to help you be able to move your child. So that was like the whole goal. So it was kind of fun, because I was like, you just proved the point.
Exactly. So real quick, for the last 2 minutes we got left, as transportation chair in the Senate, will you be listening to the hated emissions bill that our good friend Jeff McNeely has been just lambasted for? Is that going to be dead on arrival?
Dead on arrival, man.
Exactly. That $29.15 once a year is just, you can't have that. You can't have that.
So we are looking at emissions testing, which across North Carolina, except for Mecklenburg County, we have excluded from. Now, Iredell County was excluded 2 years ago. We're waiting for the feds to actually sign off on the order, but that has been done. So if you live in Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte, you still will have to get your emissions test, and that's only because of an EPA rule about air quality. But as soon as they get to that area, then we're going to get out of there too. The emissions thing is really interesting. The inspection thing is really interesting. And there's only like 19 other states that require annual inspections.
Yeah, it's time to get modern cars and everything like that. I can understand why it was needed back in the day.
Yeah.
When diesel and everything like that, the requirements on cars today require them to lower emissions of what their exhaust is. So if the car is built to spec, then the emissions are okay.
So I actually think we should work towards eliminating vehicle inspections, but do it gradually over time, because there are small businesses that use this as an income source or income revenue. So I don't want to kneecap any of those small folks, but let's look at removing vehicle inspections in our near future.
Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.